All right. Thanks again for listening to the Minnesota Basketball Coaching Podcast. This week, this episode, we have three guests. We have Stanley Clay from Cristo Rey Jesuit, Damian Johnson, new Benilde-St. Margaret's head coach, and Zander Culver from Roseville. Gentlemen, how are we doing?
Man, doing well. How about yourself?
Doing great.
I'm well. I really appreciate you guys coming on. The first 22 episodes, we've talked a lot of X's and O's, but with everything that's went on in Minneapolis here in the last few weeks, with George Floyd dying at the hands of a Minneapolis police officer and the protests speaking out against the mistreatment of police officers towards the African-American community, I thought it'd be really important for the listeners near and far to just kind of get a little bit more understanding of the dynamic and ways that coaches can have these conversations with their team to advance and keep the conversation going. There's been a lot of good content out there. I know, Damian, you've had some stuff already get out, with the Star Tribune. I know you got some stuff that we'll talk about here at the end about what your vision is for urban and rural schools. I just wanted to bring you guys in, so just kind of, we can go right around the horn. We can start with Damian. George Floyd dies, the video's out. Kind of what was your initial reaction?
I was just heartbroken, man, because the thing is, I've been to that same store before. One of my close friends used to live over south, so it just was heartbreaking just to see that, that's the same situation. Could have easily been somebody else, myself in particular, and it's just seeing it. And, over the last few years, I had my kind of run-ins where I had, getting pulled over, and just every time you see them blue and red lights, it kind of, your heart just drops. So just seeing that live, it's kind of getting to see that video over and over at so many different angles. It just touched me mentally. It kind of, it just helped you realize any day it could be your last day and nothing's promised. So it just kind of messed me up mentally for a while.
Yes, Stanley, what about you?
I was obviously sad, but it made me angry to continue to see it televised. And, being a young black male in the city of Minneapolis, from the city of Minneapolis, my high school is in that community. It could have been me. It could have been any of our kids. And it's just, when it's repeatedly showed on TV across America, you kind of feel a sense of hopelessness because you see it every day and you just don't see a result to where you feel like there's justice served.
Well, you, Zander.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback off what they said. So the way it impacted me, I was first heartbroken and then angry, to literally see a man's life snatched from him. Just taken from him. And it really hit home for me because it happened 2 blocks from where I live. So me and my fiance, we walked that, we walked that street weekly. That could have been me. That could have been somebody that I know. And I broke down. I was sad, and I couldn't believe it that it's 2020 and this kind of stuff is still going on. And then I immediately thought about my kids too, and trying to figure out, okay, I'm a 29-year-old male, black male. How are these 15 through 18-year-olds processing this? So I immediately went into, how can I help them and be there for them?
How have, any one of you guys, feel free to jump in, however, it doesn't have to be, you guys can go back and forth as much as you want on this. How have you addressed this with your teams, and what are some of the conversations that you've had with them, and what have kind of been their feelings? And like you mentioned, as 15, 18-year-olds, what are they feeling about this? And then how have you talked with them and helped them get through this or process through this?
The first thing I did, I called each of my kids of color. I called them all and just let them know, hey, I love you. I care about you. You're a valued person outside of basketball. You're a valued individual, and I just let them know that first, because I feel like that's part of the emotions. It's like you can get killed out on the streets just because of the color of your skin and make you feel like you less than human. And so I just wanted them to feel that, like, hey, you are loved, you are cared about, you are valued. And then with some of them, I asked them, how are you processing? How are you feeling? And some of them, of course, they were able to talk and say, I'm angry, I'm upset. But some of them really didn't know how to feel about it. It was almost just like, I wonder if they couldn't see themselves in, George Floyd. But it was a wide range of emotions from the kids.
We got a group chat, so we were in there and kind of piggybacking what Zander said, just letting them know that they're cared and they're loved, but most importantly, to be fed up with what you see and what's going on, and how are you going to use your voice to change the next generation. I think that was the big thing we talked about with my group, was your feelings are natural to be angry and frustrated and hurt. We've got kids of Hispanic and black kids and white kids, and I text them all the same thing, because their voice is powerful. And to not be accustomed to seeing what we've seen, at our age. So that was really just the big thing. You're loved, you're valued, but what are you going to do with your voice to make a change for this situation in a productive way, I should say?
Yeah, and my situation was a little different, because I think the day the incident happened, and when everything kind of broke out, as far as the protesting got a little more rambunctious, is the day that I found out I was officially the Benilde-St coach. So I sent a group message to my guys, and I just wanted to check in on them, because I knew the next day I was going to tell them, before when I was going to talk to them about just me leaving, but I was going to actually tell them the same day, but it was just so much going on that I kind of had to push it back. And we had a group chat started, and we had, we got kids from multiple races on our team, and one of the white kids said something about the looting, some of the looting things that was going on in the group chat, and I kind of had to, I was playing kind of peacemaking the situation, but what he was saying was right at the time, and I don't think none of the kids were able to hear it, so I was able to call a player that was the most upset about it. We kind of had to just talk about, kind of hit the kid's perspective, so you can hear, so you can understand it, and he got a better understanding from it. And I was talking to both kids, and it was just, they were able to kind of, I think it got better after when it all was said and done. But it was just, everybody they had some looting issues in the Sunray area of St. Paul. So like a lot of the kids, the main message for me was, make sure you're being careful out there. I don't mind you going to protest or anything, but just make sure you're not going to do anything else where you could put yourself in a bad situation. And that's what I was more reaching out to them about, because some of them were joking like they were going to get some shoes and stuff, but I was letting them know in all seriousness stuff, all seriousness, like, don't go around that way. And they all was saying, yeah, they were just messing around, but it was kind of just making sure they don't do anything that could cause them any harm, and being able to use their voice and articulate what they wanted to say, where they're not where they could have people going to listen to them, and they're not just being angry. Because the thing about it is, the incident just made a lot of kids just angry in general, just because you see it, and a lot of them already feeling that, this generation right here has a lot of built up anger, and just anything is almost like they're a ticking time bomb, just because they had to watch so much over the years, and their parents got so much that they're passing down to them from all the hardships we just faced, just from the 90s era, where right after post-crack cocaine era, where a lot of families was affected by that. They just got so many things in the black community that's kind of tough for kids to, try to cope with. And now we're at a point where they're not standing for it anymore. They're more outspoken, and they want to speak up on a lot of these issues.
Mm-hmm. I think you're seeing layers, from what our parents seen to what we seen, and, like I told Damian and stuff, my dad's from Mississippi. My dad was charged with bringing a white woman across state lines. And that white woman is actually who he married my mother today. So it's kind of crazy. So you see the layers of it. My dad was accustomed to it. We were aggravated by it, and then you see this next generation, and they're just like, we're not taking it.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Did you?
That was actually.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say that was actually really inspiring to see, and motivating that. It's a lot of, if you're looking at the riots, or for me, I've been to a lot of the peaceful protests. It's a lot of young people out there, and that's how the change is ultimately, going to be made with, with people of different cultures coming together, and it starts with them. And that was just awesome to see, like these young kids out here not standing for this at all, standing next to their brothers and standing next to their sisters.
And even see it in other countries, like seeing Australia protests and seeing them protest in England, and just seeing them I've never would have guessed you'll see protests for Black Lives Matter in Germany. It's just hearing, seeing and hearing all of it, it's crazy to see, and it's inspiring at the same time, because now you feel, I don't know, this is probably one of the first time in my lifetime where I feel like that change is coming and is moving closer, just because you see so many people that want to see that change. And, like when Obama became president, that kind of gave, I don't know about you guys, but it gave me hope, because like my mom, my whole life would say, you could be anything you want to be, but I never really believed it at all.
Right.
Like, I never would have guessed a Black person would be able to be a president. Just seeing that in general just gave me that hope that, everything she's saying may be coming into fruition one day. And you just got to keep believing and keep pushing that fight. And now, these last few years, you just see more people. They got more Karen situations going on, where you see more people not afraid to say something that, it's just more incidents where you're seeing people saying stuff that you probably wouldn't see before, just because a lot of stuff in the media now is kind of provoking for people to be more outspoken on the opposite end of the spectrum as far as racism, where the guys feel free to speak to you just because they think they're above you. Where I didn't even see that in us growing up in the South. It wasn't that bad. And now it's just anybody, no one's scared to speak now, and it's just gonna say stuff in the incident that could go in a whole completely wrong direction. And I hopefully we could kind of get that stuff a little bit more under control, because these Karen situations just doesn't make sense.
No, I think the world is extremely toxic, and being able to go see the protest, 38th in Chicago, it was peaceful. And I went right when it happened. It almost didn't feel like somebody had died there. And going on Lake Street, it was a different environment. It was young kids, it was Black kids, brown kids, white kids, it was old people, it was babies, and they were just fed up. And that's the thing where I see, what Damian's saying about the change, we're seeing a glimpse of it, and it's actually like, wow, we matter across the world instead of just mattering inside of our communities.
Yeah, I want to, and then also kind of in the same breath, when I'm starting to see they're tearing down some of these statues of former slave owners, changing the names of some of these schools that are buildings that are named after former slave owners. It's just all, it's a lot of little things. You start talking about systematic racism. It's a lot of little things like that, that's good to see. It makes me feel valued. Like, okay, they finally at least hearing. You can understand why that it would make me upset to go into a building named after a slave owner. So it's been nice around the world to see that, people are trying to make that change, getting rid of those statues, changing those names.
Absolutely.
And then Damian, my bad.
No, you're
so going kind of a sidebar, but you was talking about when Obama became president. That was 2008. I went to college in 2009. I majored in political science immediately. And I didn't have much interest in politics prior to that. It was, Obama president? Yep. Political science, sign me up. So just, seeing
Obama was a motivation.
Oh, yeah.
So what are you mentioned systematic racism, Zander. What are some ways that you experience systematic racism, maybe not on a daily basis, but in general in your daily lives?
In my daily life, systematic racism, besides times in the past where I get, pulled over for no reason, I'll take it back to college in terms of, education. In order to get into the program that I wanted to get into, it was strictly based off of, your test scores and things like that. It had nothing to do with, you know, who you are as a person or who you were as a learner. And studies will show you that our educational system is biased and geared for the white male. So you're measuring me based off a standard that was built for somebody else, and now telling me that I can't get into this program because I didn't meet this standard. So that's, you know, that's one way, you know, where you could be held back.
I use the same story every time, you know, working at a school today. I remember having to watch Roots growing up in school. And that was powerful in the sense of it was feeding a stereotype, and then we had to stick around in a school around kids who just watched us for 10 hours be slaves and be made of jokes. And it trickles down into the education system. We're dumb, we're stupid, we're slow, we're this and that, but it's a stereotype that they have put in the education system for so long. I've never read about Black history in school books. You know, I went to Holy Angels. My African American studies teacher was white. Those are things that, looking back on it, it should have been a red flag, but it wasn't.
And I just look at it, you know, and I don't think a lot of people just understand kind of the residual effects of just everything. I mean, we look at it, and you know, you got a group of people that were kind of and that's been, you know, slaves, or then they had laws against us ranging from 400 years. But at the same time, we think, you know, there won't be PTSD in that community, or you trying to come out of those situations where you're trying to overcome so much, but you still got your parents that's kind of still got that residual effect that they got passed down from their parents, and then the parents before that. So it's like it's a long-term process that we're trying to get out of. But I think at the same time, people don't see that sometimes that, as far as like, my name is Damian Johnson. I don't think you, I mean, that's not really, I could be, you know, you won't be able to really tell my race from just looking at my name. But at the same time, my kids have names where I know eventually when they get older that they might not get interviews because of their names. And that's something my wife was concerned about. We got a baby due next month, and that was something she was concerned about, even with naming our next child. Like, I don't want them to get blocked out of opportunities just from their name and on their resume alone. And that's stuff that I don't think a lot of people have to think about, because I feel like sometimes, and I've seen it, I've worked in corporate America, and I done worked around. I mean, I worked for almost around 2-3 years in corporate, and I could count on my hands how many just Black co-workers I had in my departments each of those times. And we had up to 20, 30 people in those departments every time, you know, and I'll be maybe one and maybe one under for the most part. And it's never been, I mean, just looking at it, it can get frustrating at times. It's kind of why I love getting into the school system, just because I was able to be around kids, you know, African American kids, and then I just seen the positive effects that I was starting to have in their lives. And I think more kids need to see more positive influence, positive role models that look like them, and I don't think we got enough of those around. Even saying why, you know, I think we need to have more people trying to promote being teachers and educators inside of colleges, and not even just to normal students. I'm talking more to geared towards athletes. That's something I'm kind of one of my goals eventually. Have talks with athletes about, if you don't go pro, maybe check into getting into the educational system, because I think just with our personalities and being part of teams for so long, I think we have that positive energy that a lot of kids could feed off. That's needed in the education system. I just think a lot of things as it's currently going right now, I think we kind of just fail in some certain groups completely, just because we don't have enough resources in some communities. And like today I posted about, you know, we need more mental health professionals inside schools. That's definitely schools that got a large Black population, just because you've seen so much. And a lot of these kids have times where everybody's not from a traditional 2-family household. And sometimes when you living in a single family household, your mom has to work her butt off just to be able to provide. You might not have that foundation. So at the same time, you got issues that's going on. You might not even have the opportunity to even talk to your parent as much as you would like. And I think having more mental health professionals just to be able to deal with some of those emotional issues going on would be very beneficial. And that's why St. Paul schools teachers went on strike. And I don't think a lot of people was really hearing them. But that's something that's big. I think I'll see it at North St. Paul. Like, a lot of those kids got got things they went through that they still trying to overcome. And there's not enough people there to have their back and help guide them through those issues.
Damian, I want to say something about that real quick. So you talked about, the kids of color and one parent home, 2-parent home. So when I won't say when, but I heard, well, I'll just say it. So I was talking to an administrator, and we were talking about kids, and I was trying to take a group of kids of color to do something, and kind of like a field trip for being a part of this after school program. And as we were talking about one of the kids, the gentleman said, "Oh, he's not really, he's black, but he's not really black." And he was, he comes from a good home. And so that's just something I want to clear up. I come from a good two-parent home background. That don't make me any less black than anybody else. That don't make any of the kids that we're working with that may come from a more stable home, it don't make them less black. So we still got to show up for those kids as well who are going through these different experiences as young black males.
And I agree with you on that one too. Just because I'm like you. I came from a two-parent home, and I think a lot of people looked at me different just because I had 2 parents in the house. Even within our own community, some people had a little bit of envy just from seeing that. And I think because a lot of those, I think people that look at it and they feel like, okay, he has 2 parents now. He's not as they don't look at you the same way as a single kid who has, just living in the office with a single parent, and usually sometimes their father's not in their lives. I think those kids get more attention just because they feel like a better sob story to help out, and they don't look at the kids with 2 parents. My dad had to work his butt off, and we had to go 2 weeks at a time working offshore where I couldn't even see him at all. So if it wasn't for us finally getting a camcorder, my dad was gonna miss all my games growing up because he had to work. And I think they don't even understand, even as a 2-family household, sometimes sometimes you still working, we still grinding from the bottom trying to just survive. So I think a lot of people just don't look at, single family or 2 families. A lot of people are living it from check to check, and it takes a while. I don't think people understand how much of a struggle that could be, and how much it affects kids growing up seeing your parents struggling, no matter if you're living in a single family or a 2-family household.
I think it's a natural feeling though. You get boxed in when you have 2 parents and you grow up in a inner city where your friends only have 1, or you got a nice house, or your Christmas looks different. That's a natural feeling, I think. I think the stereotype is where we go wrong, and that's how we continue the systematic race part amongst ourselves. You're not black enough if you didn't struggle. That's the most absurd thing, because we're all parents and we're all trying to make sure our parents have better, our kids have better lives than we did. We put ourselves in that box and say, well, you're not black enough because you didn't struggle, or you didn't go to jail, or you didn't do this, or you didn't have to do this. And we feed right into it. And, that's something that, with our kids at Cristo Rey, we work really hard on. Your environment doesn't define who you are. Your surroundings don't define who you are. Your actions is what defines you. So that's something we really focus on over there, is just don't let people put you in a box because you're living over north, or, you've got 1 parent, or you're taking care of your brothers and sisters all day and night. We just try to not compare lives.
What sort of bias do you guys see in high school sports?
I'll say a bias not even in the high school level, and it's something that's kind of been annoying me for a while since I've been in Minnesota, and it's something that I don't think enough people touch on is in MIAS, the NYS, as far as teams in the they got a thing called renegade teams, which just that in itself to me, I feel like it gives off racial, I just don't think, I think it's racially insensitive because it's always, they focus on the teams from the inner city that's usually predominantly black because I've never heard the Minneapolis Lakers called a renegade team, and they're not affiliated to with a high school. Yet I hear when I see MLK play or the Spartans or Family First, all these different teams across the inner all these different inner city teams that most of their high school can't afford to run a travel program, so those kids are stuck trying to figure out ways to play, and they might not be afforded those same opportunities, and they got guys putting together a team even though people consider them all-star teams or whatever. But I think it's a lot of it becomes jealousy. But those kids, I mean, if those high schools could all have a travel program, then I don't know if you could, what would you say then? But I think just since they don't have those same opportunities, we almost lost our travel program in North St. Paul when I took over. Like, we had to rebuild that whole thing. And we had to do a lot of offering scholarships and everything because a lot of kids can't afford that. And we had to do a lot of fundraising. We had to get real creative we started creating payment plans just to help kids be able to afford it. And then we went from when I got there, it was down to like 3 teams to finally, I think we had 8 or 9 last year. We still, there's still opportunity to grow there. And I just hated to hear that renegade program because I used to let a lot of those kids in our basketball camps from Family First and stuff like that. And those kids aren't bad kids or anything. And a lot of the issues they have with parent incidents in mine is, man, you got parents calling kids renegades the whole game, and you don't think their own parents gonna get frustrated and get it. Of course something's gonna happen. It's kind of, I don't like the idea of the Mayas having something they label as a renegade program, and it's usually all black teams from the inner city they give that label to.
Well, I think what it does is renegade becomes a new term for the word. You know what I'm thinking? And renegade teams are never labeled in the suburbs, and that's been proven in all my traveling coaching days. Coaching in high school, you got 3 black coaches on this podcast, and that's probably 4 or 5% of the black coaches in the state of Minnesota. So for me, that's a big problem. We want to teach kids they can be anything we want, but we can't be high school coaches. We can't be athletic directors. So we're good enough to train your kids. We're good enough to bridge the gap to be that assistant because you've got some black kids on the team and you want to, be able to be in the in crowd. So you're going to hire a black coach. But, looking at these 3 head coaches, I've never met Zander a day in my life. If this doesn't happen, I don't get to meet him. So like us coming together, that's showing the problem of we don't have enough black coaches in the state. And I'm not saying every school should have a black coach, but we shouldn't only be able to coach city schools.
And Zander, I know Zander could speak on it, and that's why something that's kind of like Stanley said, it gets kind of frustrating because I feel like sometimes coaches get pigeonholed, and I don't think people could see. I feel like I could coach anybody if it's black, white, Asian. It don't matter where they're from. I could coach them. I feel like I could connect with kids. I just connect with people, and I think I do a good job of doing that. And I think being able to coach at EP and before I went to North St. Paul, if you look at it, those kids are night and day from each other. And I don't understand how a lot of coaches get stuck in that label where when your school's getting an emerging black population, then it's cool to hire a coach. But when it was just majority suburb kids, that same coach wasn't going to get that opportunity. I think we got to start looking at just different ways to help coaches develop and to kind of get coaches connected with the right people, because I just think, I don't know, I just don't understand how out of 400 and whatever amount of schools in the state of Minnesota, there's only like 25 black coaches, and they got so many good black coaches that I've seen around, and sometimes it may be a requirement here and there. And that's another thing. I mean, I don't understand what you need a college degree to even be a basketball coach for. Like, guys, everybody's not going to be, I see if it was to be a work inside the school system in itself and be a teacher or something like that, but coaching, I don't understand what's the point of needing a college degree just to be a coach on top of it, because they got some good coaches who kind of get stuck as assistants forever just because they didn't have that opportunity to get a college degree, but they work well with kids. I think they could be great leaders, and then end up getting stuck coaching AAU teams where they work well with kids also. So I just think some of the stuff, to me, I don't know. I just don't feel like – I feel like we could find other avenues to help get more black coaches involved, and we could get more black coaches head of coaching opportunity.
Absolutely. I don't consider myself a black coach. I'm a basketball coach who happens to be a black male. And I think that's something that, you know, I see so many guys I know, and they get really bad jobs because they want to coach so bad. And it's like you get stuck in a job, you get a bad record for 3 years, and then nobody wants to hire you, and now you're forced to be an assistant again somewhere, and then you're that bridge the gap guy that I was talking about. And we see it all the time. You know, we see guys get multiple opportunities, you know, not to say they don't deserve them, but most of the time it's based on who they know or what program they're affiliated with. And I think it's harder for us to get our foot in the door and then keep our foot in the door. You know, just observations I've seen.
Now I want to just kind of respond to what Damian said. So when he told me that there were, I think, what you say, 25 or 26 out of 400 some odd coaches, you know, 25 or 26 coaches of color out of 400 and some coaches, I was blown away. I mean, I knew that the percentage was small, but I didn't realize it was that small. And that's you know, to me, that's a problem. Because also, kind of like what Stanley said, how can we preach to a kid that they could do whatever they want to do, but they not seeing people like them, you know, in these positions? You know, that's huge, and that's important for a kid to see that. Then they could believe that and think that they could achieve that. But if you don't ever see you know, a black coach, or if you don't ever see a black person that's in a position of power, it turns into like, that ain't for us. You know, we don't do that.
Feel free to answer this as cautiously, however you want to, because I don't know who from the high school leagues gonna be tuning in. Do you feel at times you are maybe treated differently by officials?
Absolutely. And I'll just be blunt, honest. I think it's the referee leagues, associations, they're ran by, you know, older people who may not understand kids and their emotions and their swagger, and you know, so we call kids arrogant, we call coaches, you know, loud and rude because they're passionate. Sometimes for us, you know, at least me speaking, the kids I coach, like if I sit on the bench and I'm quiet and I don't say anything and I'm not engaged and I'm not intense, they're gonna notice that about me. And I think that's something where refs sometimes feel like we're the angry black man, because we're passionate, because we're, you know, we're up and we're in a defensive stance and we're asking a question. And, you know, I've seen, you know, white coaches get answers to questions and I've been told to sit down, and then eventually it becomes a power struggle. And I think, you know, there's not enough black referees, but the black referees that, you know, they're out there, it's a struggle to get them for your game because the bigger schools are going to get them. So for me, being the smallest school on this platform, you know, we usually get the 55 to 60-year-old white man who's reffing our game, and he's most likely out of shape, no offense, you know, and he has a disconnect with the city. So when you have a city conference game and it's packed and the crowd is intense and you've got neighborhood versus neighborhood, it's an environment that a true basketball player is going to love. But is this referee going to feel threatened? Is he going to be, you know, scared to make the right call? And then you have the black ref who sometimes he doesn't want to make the right call for you because he doesn't want to seem like he's doing a favor for you when he's just doing his job.
And I'm going to kind of go, like, I agree with you on a lot of it. I think just sometimes, we kind of get, sometimes it's kind of looked at as loud. Sometimes when coaches stand up in our into it instead of looked at as passion for certain coaches. And I feel like, I mean, if you look at it, and I'm Coach Klein from Creed, Coach Klainsborn, like they're loud and they're talking nonstop during the games. And I don't think we're viewed the same way. And I've been part of games with those coaches where they're loud and talking to the refs. And when I say, I've rarely talked to the refs, but when I say something, it's more of a big deal. And I'm going to just be honest. I'm not trying to just call anyone out. I'm just saying it's just, to me, it kind of used to irk me because I just didn't think that was fair. I've had coaches, the refs tell me to sit down for stuff and you could talk to any ref that knows me. I don't talk to refs much. When I do, I just feel like I just want to know what's going on. And I'm just asking questions. And I feel like sometimes when I've seen those coaches get louder with refs and not I'm not treated the same when I do the same thing. That's just something that's something that kind of irked me. It started annoying me as the season built on, definitely last year, just because, man, my kids going to be rough differently because we play defense differently. We're going to be a little bit more aggressive and kind of in your face. But sometimes I think we get a lot more ticky-tack calls sometimes when we go into the rim aggressive and we don't get those same calls. And I don't know if it's just curler or style of play, but I just think a lot of people are out of touch. Even when kids celebrate, it kind of certain celebrations irk them because, some guys, but I don't think everybody's understanding everybody's, it's different cultures. And as long as I've been around, I mean, our culture, as far as African Americans in general, we get loud. We like to have a good time, you know what I mean? So when the kids enjoying themselves, I don't think they should be dinged for that. It's just them loving, that's them having passion for the game, enjoying the game. I know as a player, if I make a layup, and I still say this as a coach, if I make a layup and I get fouled, I'm gonna say and one loud. That's just something I like to do. That's something that's just fun. It makes the game fun.
It just comes with it.
Everybody energy going. So like that's something I think. I know a lot of people aren't a fan of it. They think it's kind of showing people up. I just think it's more people just having fun playing the game. And I think people kind of look at it different when certain schools do it, but it's just fun because I know I used to do the same thing when I was coaching at EP and the refs didn't say anything to me then. But when I do it, at North St. Paul, it's a bigger deal. I guess maybe I was an assistant doing it. That's why. But it's still someone that's on a coaching style screaming and one when somebody make a layup and get fouled. It should be the same way. It should be treated the same way everywhere.
So what advice would you have for, any high school coach, because I think it's really important as coaches and educators, regardless if you're in a teacher or not, that we need to have these conversations with our teams, as many teams can reconvene now, starting here on Monday. Other teams might have to wait until after the 4th, but in the next few weeks, most high school teams are going to be back in the gym in one way or another. And so what's some advice you would give to coaches to have these conversations? And it can be the coach from the inner city, the coach from the suburb, or the coach in rural Minnesota.
I would say, and this is what thankfully I've been around a lot of great coaches. And this is what I've seen, and this would be my advice too. Got to start looking at these kids as kids and not as just basketball players. And I'm not trying to give the interview answer right now, but basketball is really a tool that we should be using to bring these kids together and allow them to build relationships and to care for each other genuinely. And that starts with us as a coach. If we treat kids differently and only treat them like they basketball players instead of a whole human, that's how the kids are going to treat each other. So that would be my thing. Treat them like kids, build relationships with them, view them as your kids. Create opportunities for them to come together and be together. The only time your team is together shouldn't just be on the basketball court. You gotta start fostering these relationships and having difficult conversations with them. All three of us on here said we talk to the kids on our team and said, hey, this is a difficult time and spoke some words of encouragement. We can't be afraid to have those conversations. Sometimes stuff like this happens and we're in COVID, we're not really seeing the kids. We just gonna kind of move past it. We're not gonna talk about it come June 15th. All right, we just back to normal. You can't do that. Get uncomfortable and have that conversation with your kids.
I think I've always heard coaches say, I know my guys, I know my players. You know, you always hear coaches say that. And the advice I would say is understand your players, understand the dynamics that they deal with day to day, understand the demographics and the economic situations they deal with from day to day, and don't just cater to the black kids, cater to your whole team, because in a sense you need all of them to have each other's back and be there for each other. And too often we see coaches scared to really go the extra mile. When 5:30 ends, their phone email is done, there is no contact. We have to be, especially coaching kids of color, you have to be a 24-hour coach, because their life and their problems are 24 hours a day. And that's not to say it's always going to be bad. Sometimes you're the person they want to call with that positive news. But are you looking at them as a basketball player, or are you looking at them as a person? They're going to want to tell you what's going on in their family, the positive news. But are you only interested about their crossover or their jump shot? You hear coaches say, I want guys communicating on defense. Are you creating a platform to communicate in life with your team? And if it's just basketball, at some moment, you're going to have to go through some adversity that you're not going to be able to handle as the coach. And then your kids are going to look lost because they're looking at you for the guidance.
Yeah, and I just think coaches just continue to just be upfront and honest. And even if a lot of coaches probably don't even feel comfortable, especially, I would say as a white coach, I probably wouldn't even feel comfortable trying to talk about race, because a lot of coaches feel like they're going to say the wrong thing. But at the same time, don't be afraid to say the wrong thing. Just kind of talk about it. Like, if the only way we're going to make change, if you kind of have conversations where if you might be ignorant to something, that's the easiest way to learn, is say it and someone to correct you. I think a lot of people just afraid of offending people so much that they kind of have some ignorant, biases or stereotypes in their own mind. Where, if you ask questions, ask around, a lot of those guys could find someone to ask that they could probably get some help from. Just ask those questions so you could kind of get a better understanding. That way you could be able to talk to your teams and kind of help your teams get your team a better understanding, especially if you're dealing with kids that's never had that exposure to kids from other races, or even just been exposed to just different cultures around within the state of Minnesota. It's just so different each spot you go at. I live in Brooklyn Park. If I leave here and go to Maple Grove, that's a whole big difference, and that's less than 5 miles apart. Like, it's just a big difference everywhere you go at around Minnesota. Even if you live on the south side, once you start moving your way to Edina, that's a whole different thing. Through rolling through Uptown, they got so many differences in where you could be at, that you got to start talking to the kids. So and I know it's hard to have some of these conversations, because a lot of people get tired of race because everybody's scared to have those conversations. Will make it tired. A lot of people getting tired of hearing about race. And I think that's the part where we got to get moved past. We won't grow as a society if we continue to just say we're tired of hearing about it, and we don't never move forward and just have that simple conversation. Because I feel like before everybody started joining together after this George Floyd thing, there weren't many discussions about different racial issues that's been going on now. And it usually takes something to cause, the last time they had, I can't even remember the last one before George Floyd, to be honest, but that's the only time we start hearing it. Once we see something happen, just a weird incident that's police brutality, that's when we kind of start hearing stuff. I'm glad this one at least made people start trying to make action happen. I think this one was finally the thing that put us over the top, and I think people got to feel comfortable just having that conversation about race, having that conversation about differences, even putting some of their bias in their own mind on the table, where they could kind of start growing as a person themselves. Keeping it hidden to yourself because you're scared what people are going to judge you about is not going to help you grow as a person.
No, absolutely. And, me having a black child, it's like, whether I'm coaching when he's in high school or not, but to see the coaches, that are white coaches wanting to be informed and get a better understanding, like, it gives me hope for my child and his generation of going, you know what, whether I'm coaching them or, Brett, you're coaching them, it's people who are going to try to understand him and be there for him instead of using him as a tool to get a win. Because the reality is these kids aren't going to the NBA. You know, it's tough enough for kids to get to college. So the moment we create for these 4 years that we have them in high school, we're creating such a big foundation for their future. So if we want to challenge kids to be put in uncomfortable situations, to be resilient, we have to be put in uncomfortable positions to show our resilience.
Yeah, and I think there's a big difference between being understanding and being soft on your kids too. Like you still got to hold just because this tragedy just happened. That don't mean that we or any coach starts treating their players differently and get soft. Like you still got to hold your players accountable, because even though we see some change happening, that change is still not here. And so we still need to hold our kids very accountable, so they know that, hey, this situation is very bad, okay? And it's very hard in America for a Black male. That's the reality. So I need to hold you accountable, because as soon as you leave this gym and as soon as you graduate high school, you're going to be held even more accountable. So we got to continue to be tough on them, love on them, understand them, build relationships, but hold them accountable in the same breath.
How do we move forward?
Shoot, I think, this having conversations like this, and then just finding, as I said earlier, just finding ways for us all to connect. Like, this game is beautiful. How can we connect all of our teams? How can we foster and build these relationships and really start caring about each other? That's what I would say. Find a way. How can we find a way to build relationships and get teams together?
I think you continue the dialogue, and we remember that it's just a game and the life part is bigger, and we find ways to unite that. And with me at Cristo Rey, we're a different type of school. Our population is 85% Latino and 14% Black. So we see so many different cultural aspects, and we're just trying to unite them through a game. That's it. And when the buzzer sounds, did we do enough to where when they walk out and they leave that high school and they see a Black person, are they going to feel safe? When they see a Hispanic person, are they going to feel safe? That's my job at the end of the day, is just to unite people using this game, to educate people, to not have a stereotype. And every white person you see isn't bad, every Black person you see isn't bad. And it's just more education, because the reality is there's an age gap that you're not going to be able to educate. But that next generation, they're all ears. They want the change, and us as coaches, we have to facilitate a platform to where we get kids to unite.
Yeah, and I think just like you said, moving forward, trying to get kids connected, man. And I know, I know a lot of times if you look at some of the kids that play AAU, I think they feel a lot more comfortable just being around, black kids, Black people in general, just because they spend so much time getting a chance to know they got kids that come from so many different places, that once they get a chance to know each other, I think they feel a lot more comfortable, and they end up building some of those long-lasting relationships. Even in college, I think we kind of doing our kids a disservice not getting them around each other more, because even if a lot of those kids go to college, we got a kid that's a possible D1 player. He's going to have to be able to interact with Black teammates. He's going to have to learn how to be able to be in environments with people from different cultures, different races. So I think that's being in college kind of helped me really grow as a person, just because our team was so diverse. I got a chance to experience different things. I mean, I had a teammate, Zach Pucktail. I went to his synagogue before. I had no clue about anything in the Jewish culture, and just being able to go experience that was an eye opener for me. And just being able to just be around Jamal Bushamali, he was half Palestinian, and he was just telling me some of the stories from his dad, stuff like that. It just helped me learn more about other cultures that I was ignorant to be honest. And I think a lot of people kind of get stuck where they're not around different people, so they're not able to hear different stories. And it just become a lot of the things that's going on is just ignorant people, just people, you know, not understanding, people not people just real closed-minded. And I think if we could be able to continue to have an open mind and just try to learn more about each other and be able to build relationships with different people, grow your network, be able to connect with different people, I think it'll help out a lot, especially with this young generation. Because I feel like this young generation is a little bit more open-minded and more willing to want to learn more about each other.
And real quick, I think we just got to keep teaching kids to be able to disagree without being angry. You see so much anger in the world today. It's like, I don't have to, you know, agree with what you like. You don't have to agree with what I like. But can we have dialogue and not be angry and not be hateful? You know, and that's just the stigma I want to break from all of this going forward. Is like, let's leave the hate and the anger amongst each other out of the window. Hey, because it's so repetitive, and the next generation will continue to go through that. So that to me is a big thing, teaching them to be able to have disagreements without being angry about it.
I think that's a big thing too, and it goes along with what's going on in society to me with the cancel culture. Like, the thing is, we're going to get a lot of fake people around just for wanting to cancel everything right away. I think sometimes, even if it's something that's ignorant or something, I think we should be using that more as a teaching lesson, a learning lesson, instead of just be so quick to cancel. Now everything's ruined, and all it's going to do is continue to build hate and anger instead of people actually learning to try to improve on themselves. So I'm not the biggest fan of the cancel culture, even though some people that got canceled, I'm cool with it.
Right.
But I'm just not a fan of it. Just people getting canceled so quick without, you know, us as a group trying to, you know, educate them and help them better themselves. And I know it just, everything becomes super fake.
Well, and you know, you asked the question earlier, Brett, what can white coaches do? And I think with the cancel culture, you're going to have white coaches scared to ask questions and get to know their black kids, because I don't want to say the wrong thing and get fired. You know, so that cancel culture does really backfire on dialogue, because people are so scared to say the wrong thing or ask the wrong thing. And, you know, if you're scared to ask a question, you can't educate yourself. My dad always said there is no such thing as a dumb question, you know, and that's something I kind of live by. You might not like the question, or I might not like the answer, but I have to be able to be comfortable enough to ask it if we're looking for change.
That's a great point. You're right, because in order to, you know, educate and move the conversation. I think, Damian, I think you were, you know, with Drew Brees last week, right? I think you were on there talking about on Twitter, talking about how, you know, he said what he said and he kind of ran it back, and he obviously had talked to some of his teammates and he learned from it, right? People didn't immediately cancel Drew Brees. He you know, hopefully learned from it. It wasn't just he's trying to correct what he said just because he didn't want to face any, you know, any issues, but hopefully he did have those conversations with some of his guys. I know his teammates were kind of getting to him on Twitter too. So it is important that, you know, we do take a step back, I think, and understand that we got to educate ourselves. We got to ask those questions. And I think you're right, Stanley. We have to be able to have those tough conversations with our kids, you know, regardless if they look like us or not, because we are educators first and coaches second. Real quick, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh yeah, and that Drew Brees stuff. I mean, even with it, I just couldn't believe, like, some of the stuff that we getting canceled with too is kind of, I feel like, I mean, what he said was wrong, and I didn't agree with him. I just think he didn't he just said something without, you know, understanding everything that's going on, and, you know, it was a poor timing for him to even consider saying that. But at the same time, like, I just think that was something we were so quick to cancel, even though he's done so much work within the city of New Orleans, inside the city, to help rebuild that city. And I just couldn't believe how quick people were to cancel him. Like, he's really into helping kids no matter where they are, as far as these help a lot of predominantly black schools. And he's not afraid to step on those campuses, hold camps, do different things. And I think people overlooked that and were quick to cancel him. And that part was kind of upsetting to me, just because I feel like he didn't say nothing that was so egregious that he needed to be canceled right away. I just think he had a poor timing, and he just chose a wrong time for what the current climate going on to just even consider talking about that form of protest.
All right. Any charities or organizations that you guys are close with or you want to plug? I know there's a lot of stuff going on in Minneapolis. I know a lot of outstate schools are getting stuff organized now. Anything you guys want to plug?
Well, we are doing donations and we're taking donations at the Colin Powell Center. So anybody listening, we need all types of food, toiletries, any of that. You can bring it on down to the Colin Powell Center. Our school was vandalized during the protests. We have not fixed our school yet. We are trying to help the community. So that is kind of our main goal. We will not start workouts this week as our gym is still filled with food donations, and it's a lot of rebuilding on Lake Street. In our area alone, there was a business that burned to the ground right behind our school. So most of the businesses between Lake and Chicago, probably to Lake and Nicollet, most of those employ the students that go to our school. You know, over north, most of the kids from our school are over north as well, and they're taking donations. So we need as much as, you know, help as we can get, because it's going to be a long rebuild over there.
Yeah, and also I know Broadway Family Clinic over north, right over there on Broadway and Emerson. I know they're doing a diaper over-the-counter medicine and clothing drive also. They're just trying to get as many donations as possible. I know they were hit, and I look at it. I don't have no charities per se. I know I got a lot of stuff that I'm working on with some people and stuff, but I just think they got places through the Midway area that need donations on Lake Street and over north. They just got so many places that's hit that I think it's not really that hard, complicated or too hard to find somewhere if you just do a little bit of research to find somewhere to kind of get some donations out there and to kind of help out.
Yeah, and I'm in the same boat. I don't have any particular organizations, but I know what I did. I just simply went to Google and looked up where can I volunteer, where can I help, where can I donate. So I would recommend, if you don't know what to do or don't know where to go, get on the internet. You know, try to do something.
I will drop one more. As we all know, Minnesota transitions is no longer. So basketball community, you know, for me, I got my start over there, not there working for them, but that was my first gym I ever coached, the first game as a varsity coach in. So, you know, that's a school that we need in the community. There isn't really too many high schools in that area. So basketball community, let's try to get MTS back rolling.
Yep.
And
Good stuff.
I gotta plug one of my friends who does have an organization. It's called the Bay Laurel Fund. So if you Google Bay Laurel or go to baylaurelfund.com, that's BAYLAUREL, then fund, FUND.com.
Awesome. And then Damian, what's your vision with what you have? I know you're going to reach out to some coaches, youth associations, and whatnot. What is your vision here moving forward with bridging communities?
One thing, and Stanley and I have been talking about it for a while. We are actually planning on hosting a preseason jamboree at Concordia. We're going to invite teams. We got enough time where we can invite at least 30 plus teams. I know a lot of teams been reaching out interested. It's going to be a full day. You know, each team get a few games in. We're going to also get a chance for kids to tour the campus. I talked to Coach Fletcher at Concordia. We're going to work to try to get some admissions people to give campus tours. Also, they're going to have some speakers. We're going to plan on having someone speak on financial literacy, nutrition, the clearinghouse, just how to, as far as, you know, the requirements and how to register for clearinghouse. And also, the plan is, and I've talked to enough people that's kind of with it, we plan on having a panel, also some pretty, I'm not going to name drop yet because it's a long time from now, so a lot could change, but it's we got a panel.
You're muted, Damian.
I got you. Yeah, you're in.
Right.
Oh yeah, we got a panel of some pretty good speakers there. I think a lot of people would like to hear from. That's going to kind of be able to touch on some of the racial some of the social issues. They're going to touch on just some of their what their journey, kind of how their journey went, and I think it'll be a great event if we could get as many teams there. I'm going to send some feelers out, see how many teams we could get from outstate Minnesota to join us, get some suburban teams. Get some teams from the inner city. Just we could make it a big mix where it's a full-day event where we all together. I know I plan on providing lunch for everyone, so we have a lunch. Then we get a chance to listen to the guest panel. Then we're gonna have a lot of other stuff to go to. So I think it could be a real good event, a good way for us to kind of start building those connections, and also get a chance to listen to some higher profile people just talk about their journey and some of the stuff they're facing, kind of have a conversation about being able to handle tough conversations.
Awesome. Anything else any of you want to add before we sign off for the day?
I think this is awesome. You even setting this up, just giving us a voice to be able to give you guys a voice, but also to give us some kind of understanding, and bouncing ideas off of coaches, whether, they're black or white. We all coach kids of different colors, but I just think learning each other helps us attack the gym harder and prepare our kids that much harder. Like Damian said, I'm super excited for this jamboree. I think it's going to be something that the city is going to really embrace. I think it's going to be well-needed education for the kids. At Cristo Rey, we've always brought speakers in, and before the George Floyd incident, we had already kind of started getting them lined up for next year. And, next year we're focusing a lot more on the mental health part of growing up in inner cities, and the things you see day to day, it wears on you. And we're just trying to control those outbursts. So we want to be able to put them in front of people that can, explain their feelings and give them that coping mechanism.
And also, I forgot to. We also plan on doing during the jamboree, kind of doing since Concordia's location is right in the heart of right by the Midway area that was hit pretty bad, and also having Cristo Rey be part of it, and they're right off Lake Street. I think that's a great opportunity to do a fundraiser to continue to help those businesses try to recover from what's going on. So I think, just having a chance to get people to just donate stuff, kind of get a chance to watch some great basketball, and then just get a chance to, help out as much as possible, because it's not going to be a quick recovery from a lot of those places. A lot of those places kind of, having to deal with so much damage, and just being able to try to even rebuild what they're going to do is going to be such a long process. I think anything we could do to help and kind of continue to help those guys, find ways to reach back to normalcy, because the Frogtown areas, everybody's just so affected in the St. Paul area. I think having something like this just to be positive and just to show people care what's going on and get a chance to enjoy hoops where, everybody could enjoy being around each other. I think it's just something big that's needed, and I think it'll be great.
Yeah, and I also just want to thank you for, bringing us all together and having this conversation. And then, just a reminder to all our coaches out there. I stole this from Brian Schneller from Wayzata. Remember why we teach this game and coach this game. It's about building relationships, teaching lessons, and helping these young kids foster and develop relationships. So just always just keep that in mind. Absolutely.
All right, I appreciate it, guys. I know I wrote a lot of stuff down. I'm a pretty open-minded guy. I was at Augsburg my sophomore year in November of 2008 when Obama was elected. That was pretty powerful to be down in the city during that. And I learned a lot just from listening to you guys talk here for the last hour. So I appreciate it. I'm really pumped this out on Twitter here to make sure people listen all the way through, because a lot of good stuff. And I really appreciate you guys bringing the information and taking time out of your Sunday evening to sit down and talk about this stuff. So thanks, guys.
Appreciate you, brother.
Yes, sir.